Welcome to 4-Minute Film School. My name is Valentina V, and today, in today's episode, we're talking about cinematic on-location interviews. Let's go. Today we have William Helmuth, who's an amazing DP here in Los Angeles. He's worked with a bunch of awesome brands, Honda, Acura, Blizzard, Nerf, and today I've asked him to come and talk to us about interview lighting, but specifically on-location cinematic interview lighting. Now, what are some rules of thumb that you have to think about before you enter that environment?
Well, the first thing I think about is what is the natural light they're already doing? Once I figure that out, I think about how I can supplement that light. I'm not really trying to change things. I want to lean into what the light is already doing and then just supplement that. After that, I think about how I want my subject to feel against the background. Do I want him or her to kind of pop and stand out and there to be a lot of contrast? Or do I want the subject to kind of like blend into his or her surroundings and just like feel like a part of this place?
And I'm sure a lot of it is also choosing the angle and what you want to show in the background and sort of like deciding where to place them. Let's quickly take a look at a few examples. So this first interview setup is very familiar to me because I watch a lot of Netflix. It's a subject sitting right in the middle of the frame and they're looking right down the barrel of the lens, probably using like an Interrotron or something like that to not intimidate the subject with the lens. How did you approach this lighting setup?
I approached the space, took it all in. There's a lamp there. I turned the lamp on. I really liked how the light from the lamp was falling on the environment. So I decided like, well, you know, I'm gonna try to lean into this. With the lamp on, I dropped 6 stops of ND onto my camera so that I was exposing for the lamp. Nothing was blowing out. After that, I actually needed to pump a lot of light into the room. So I got a 300D with a light dome and a crate and then just dropped some CTS in front of it real quick. And I panned it so it was falling on the subject, but also hitting a lot of the background. What that ended up doing was being not only a key light, but also a background light.
So I noticed that you kept the color temperature of the fill daylight balanced, but your background is a lot more tungsten.
Everything in the scene was playing very, very warm, and that's fine, but I thought it might be nice to just have some very subtle color contrast in there. And to me, the fill side just seemed like a very natural place to put that. So the shadows were still shadows, but they just read as slightly cooler shadows. It doesn't feel like there's a light coming from that direction. It just feels like cool shadows.
And I like that in this setup, you can also throw in a B cam and have a side angle, and you don't have to change the lighting up at all.
Exactly.
Let's take a look. So the second interview setup was in this sort of arcade room, and what's the vibe that you wanted to convey with this interview?
Well, I imagined a documentary about an arcade video tournament champion or something like that, so I decided to light this almost like she was like a fighter, this tough person, you know? Just give this like gritty feel.
So let's break down the lighting. Your first light was a top light right above. What was that?
So I got the 300D inside of a China ball attachment, hung that just a couple feet above her face so that it wasn't super toppy. I wasn't getting like crazy raccoon eyes. Then foam core bounce right beneath her face just to fill in those shadows a little bit, you know, beneath her eyes, beneath her neck, things like that. It still has that nice toppy feel, but it's filled in a little bit.
And you skirted off that China ball that it wouldn't just like ping everywhere.
Yeah, I don't want it filling up the entire room. Again, I want it to feel like a spotlight on her.
It reminds me kind of interrogation-y kind of setup, but a little bit softer and more interview style. So I also noticed that you threw up a couple lights in the background to add a little bit extra dimension. What were those?
I got a 300D behind one of the arcade sets to create some lines on the ground and texture on the actual games, and then a 120D on the left side of the frame doing the exact same thing.
Very important. People forget about the ground. If your subject is sitting and you're seeing the ground, sometimes it's good to have a little bit of more texture there, a little bit more play. So let's see how that works out. So that is your episode on shooting cinematic interviews on location. One more time, William, if we're going on location, what are the things that we have to watch out for before we set our lighting up?
All right, so the first thing is pay attention to the natural light that's happening at your location. Natural or practical. Lean into that, don't resist it, you don't have to try to change it. Second, figure out what's happening and then figure out how you're gonna supplement that light. Finally, be very intentional about how you want your subject to feel against the background. Do you want him or her to stand out, blend in? Think outside of the box.
You know, there's so many documentaries out these days, like on Netflix, that use on-location cinematic lighting. So we want to know, what is a documentary that you saw recently that used really good cinematic lighting for their on-location interviews? The best answer will win an Aputure MW light. So if you enjoy this channel, if you enjoy this content, please subscribe to Aputure. Please follow, click the bell icon, go on Twitter, go on Instagram, follow William, follow me, and until next time, have an awesome day.